Today's episode has been brought to you by Schedulicity
and by pelvic health professionals, where you can connect to the most up-to-date information on pelvic health. Each month, we host guest experts from around the globe. Shelly Prosco has been a guest in there, and she's also one of the friends who I reached out to when I had this small light bulb of an idea. Shelly really helped me to see a bigger picture and how we can support yoga teachers and other health professionals to really connect to pelvic health information. If you would like to learn more about pelvic health and how this applies to all of your yoga students who have a pelvis, in my view, pelvic health affects us all. Visit pelvichealthprofessionals.com. Returning listeners, thank you for coming back. New listeners, hello and welcome. It's the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast here. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. I use she, her pronouns, and a really random fact about me. I made this list, and this is one of the things I put on the list, and now I'm looking at it today wondering, what was the story of this? I'm learning to love geraniums again. So if you're not sure what this is, it's a type of flower. And as I was growing up, I just remember it always being in the windows of my grandma's house. And then my mom often bought geraniums for the garden. And I just associated it with that's a plant for old people. I don't know if you have an association like this with plants, but I'm starting to love geraniums. So I'm not sure if I'm just coming around to them or if it's in fact my age. If there's a flower or a plant that you used to have feelings about and it's changed in some way, let me know in the show notes. You can head on over to theconnectedyogateacher.com/226. So what else about me? I'm a mom of 3, a yoga teacher, a podcaster, and founder of Pelvic Health Professionals. And this podcast was created for you so that each and every week you are connected to the information and inspiration that will support you as you build your unique yoga business. This week's podcast episode I'm really excited about because it ties in so nicely with last week's episode on yoga for hip pain. And it ties in really nicely with the episode that's coming out next week as well. I think it's really quite common for people to start practicing yoga because of pain. Maybe they've had an injury or they're in recovery, or maybe they're just feeling pain in certain parts of their body and they're turning to yoga to get some relief. As yoga teachers, we are sure to encounter students who have some pain in their bodies when they come to our yoga classes. As Shelly says in today's interview, pain is a normal thing for the human body. So when students come to us and tell us about their pain, what are some questions we can ask them? And what are the questions that are really rooted in empowerment and pain science and that self-compassion? Shelly Prosco joins me again to talk about good questions to ask someone in pain or who has had an injury. And I want to tell you, these are actual questions that Shelly asked me as I was dealing with a herniated disc last August. Longtime listeners of the podcast will remember Shelly from episode 116 and 117, where we talked more about pain language. So those are great episodes to return to. And also in episode 9, way back at the beginning of the podcast, where Shelly talked about Kegels and Mula Bandha, the differences and similarities, and overall pelvic health. In today's interview, Shelly explains why the questions we ask people who have pain are so important and how that can influence their healing journey. Shelly also has some insights about how we can perceive pain and rest and why having compassion is essential. Before we dive in, I want to give a shout out to the team over at Schedulicity. Thank you so much for answering my questions this week. There's some changes coming out with Schedulicity, and I'll keep you all informed here. And I sent a quick text to Jane, and Jane let me know that she's going to take care of our Connected Yoga Teacher listeners, and you'll hear a promo code coming up soon. So if you have questions about Schedulicity ever, let me know. Reach out to me in the comments of our show notes, or there's a voicemail button on our website. This is a company who's really listening to yoga teachers. So if you also have questions about their software, reach out to them. They are so helpful. Let's hear the hot tip of the week from the team over at Schedulicity.
Hey Connected Yoga teachers, this is Shayna with the Schedulicity Hot Tip of the Week. Schedulicity lets you easily visualize your plans and make changes that you don't have to write down or try to remember. Your students can always check your available classes anytime and stay up to date with changes you make. If you change a class that students have already enrolled in, Schedulicity will automatically offer to send them an alert. If you're experimenting with finding the most popular attendance times in your area, it's easy to look back and examine the success of your past classes. When your students realize they can trust you to keep them connected online in this way, they'll never be shocked if your ideal schedule happens to change. After all, flexibility is key.
Thank you so much, Team Schedulicity. Also, I want to give a shout out to Lee Campbell, who recently took the Yoga for Pelvic Health training. And Lee said, I had so much fun during your training. And I just love the tone you set with the warm, safe feeling you create. Thank you for gifting your knowledge in this way. The pelvis is the epicenter of life. So much to explore. Warmly, Lee Campbell. Thank you so much, Lee. It was such a pleasure to have you in the 20-hour Yoga for Pelvic Health training. This is something that I love to teach so much. And as Lee knows, and some of you know who took the training, this was the first time I ever taught this 20-hour training online. When everything was moving online, we moved the 20-hour training on there as well. And I was missing the in-person aspects until I realized, wow, there were different things that we could do with online teaching. And one of the biggest things is that now that training is available on demand. So if you're thinking, I want to learn more about pelvic health, this is an amazing training to set the foundation for your knowledge about pelvic health. Okay, let's get into today's interview with Shelley. Shelley Prosko is no stranger to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast, but for those of you who do not know her, she is a Canadian physiotherapist, yoga therapist, educator, author, and pioneer of physio yoga. Shelley has such a gift for integrating physiotherapy with a variety of specialty areas, including helping people with chronic or persistent pain, pelvic health issues, and professional burnout. Shelley teaches at numerous yoga therapy and physiotherapy schools, presents at yoga and medical conferences globally, in addition to contributing to academic research and writing and providing resources for the general population. Shelley also offers continuing education courses and mentorship for yoga and healthcare professionals. She has authored book chapters in yoga therapy and integrative rehabilitation textbooks, and is the co-editor author of the textbook Yoga and Science in Pain Care, Treating the Person in Pain. This is a book that I highly recommend that you check out. Shelley maintains a clinical practice in Sylvan Lake, Canada, and believes compassion is the foundation of pain care, healthcare, and overall well-being. One other huge bonus, Connected Yoga teachers, that I don't want to forget is that in today's interview, Shelley talks about an online course if you want to continue to learn how you can help your students who are dealing with pain. A really exciting piece of news is that next week we're going to hear more from Neil Pearson, who co-teaches this with Shelley Prosko along with his wife Lisa. And there's a discount code, so I'll make sure to tell you about that at the end of today's episode, as well as next week's episode as well. And if ever you're wondering, where is all of this, Shannon? I need to just see some notes and I want to just click on the link. Don't worry, we take the notes for you. Head on over to theconnectedyogateacher.com/226. Alrighty, let's dive right into this interview with Shelley Prosko. Welcome back to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast, Shelley. It is so good to have you back.
Oh, it's good to be here. I think this is number 4.
It is because you and I chatted so long about pain language that there were a couple of episodes in there.
Yeah, I didn't. You had to get back. You had to go pick up your kids or something, and I think I made you late that day. So I'll try to I feel centered and grounded, and yeah.
Well, I think that you and I could chat every week about different topics that are going on in the world. I'm really excited that, I mean, I don't even know what to label it as, but before we get into that, before we get into what we're really going to talk about today, I first want you to just tell our yoga teacher listeners who haven't met you before in previous episodes or haven't seen the work that you do, what is the work that you do and who do you do it for?
Okay, so I am a physiotherapist and a yoga therapist. I work with people that live with and suffer from chronic or persistent pain, and then also with pelvic health issues. And I integrate yoga philosophy and practices into the physiotherapy session. So it's like my brand. I just call it physio yoga. So that's what I do. But I would say though now my role has shifted and I'm primarily a continuing education provider. So I mostly teach now other professionals. So I teach yoga professionals and health professionals on how to, use yoga teachings and practices for, different specialty type populations, like people with chronic or persistent pain and like people with pelvic health issues.
I feel like the work that you are doing in this world is so supportive of many things like physios, yoga teachers, counselors. Like your specialties in pelvic health, pain, and compassion are unlike anything I've ever seen. So the reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast, and I'm so glad that you said yes, is because when I had my herniated disc in August, you called me on the phone. And that phone call was so profound in the language that you used, the different things that you said that really stuck with me, that I wanted to bring that here onto the podcast for our yoga teachers who might be talking to someone who is in acute pain, which then, might become a more persistent pain. So one of the things that I can remember from this conversation, and you probably will remember different things as well, is I think the very first thing that you asked me was, what movements are you doing? And please correct my wording on this if I'm not getting it right. Like what I heard you ask me was, what movements can you do or what positions can you find that eases the pain? Is that one of the questions that you remember asking me, or did you ask it in a different way?
No, I think that was what I had asked. Probably, I mean, that sounds like something I would ask and something I would say. Yeah, I think. I mean, it's always hard for me. Like I'm thinking here right now, okay, because I'm a physio. It's always hard for me to separate. Okay, what is my physio knowledge, and what is just kind of common sense, because I feel like, to me, I feel like that is just such common sense. Like what feels good, what brings you ease, peace, joy. But then I remember, well, those kinds of questions aren't always, common sense. And like you said, even just for yourself, that was really profound for you. And, maybe no one had asked you that yet, or you hadn't really thought of that. So yeah, I think it's just that idea of, sometimes when we're injured or when we're in pain, whether it's acute pain or persisting pain or stress or anxiety, whatever we're struggling with, I think that's sort of the first question that we can ask ourselves and reflect on, what is easeful, or what does bring me joy, or what can I do? So just going back to your situation, it was a lot of physical problems you were having, right, with your position and function. And so, yeah, I wanted to know, well, what does feel good?
Yeah, well, the way that translated then, and I want to say like echoed days later, was my focus. Whereas, I mean, you know me, I have tons of friends who are yoga teachers or physios or just anatomy nerds, like people who are really interested in the body and how it works and how it heals and all kinds of things like that. And I want to just say that I can be the same way, that when someone tells me that they're in pain, the reaction might be like, ooh, try this thing. Have you tried to do this thing or breathe this way or think this way? And instead you did this exact flip of like, you just asked me what allows you to not feel as much pain. And it was very profound. And I know that you're saying, well, I feel like this is common sense, but that's because of your years of research into pain and compassion. I think.
Well, yeah, and I think, and pain care as well. Like, so what we do know, about what we're learning about pain and pain care and working with people in pain and what yoga tells us. So it's also my, journey and through learning about yoga and what yoga teaches us. And it's that process of salutogenesis, or health creation, or moving towards, a state of health, rather than focusing on, or let me say that another way, it's focusing on the factors that focus more on creating health. Salutogenesis, right? Health creation. So you're focusing on factors that bring health, which could be, like we just said, what brings ease, peace, joy, what feels good, versus focusing on, the things that are, I'll say in air quotes, broken, or the pathology. So rather than this kinesiopathological type model, or, focusing on what's wrong, and then we need to fix it, we need that model. I've used our contemporary current medical system a lot, and will always, and focusing on that biomedical, okay, what's the problem? And then, what medication or surgery or intervention can we do to fix it? That has a place. But when we're talking about yoga and yoga therapy and this process of, like I said, salutogenesis, we're focusing on the factors that help us create more health. And that's very, like you used the word profound. And I've noticed that just even with myself and with all the people that I've worked with over the years. It's profound, and it's also, it can prove to be very effective as well, because it gives you a base of where to start. So for what, if I may, something comes to mind from that conversation. I just remember, so we started with that, and we started with, like, I'm not going to tell you, and this would be really good for any kind of fitness or yoga professional, because it's out of our scope as a yoga professional, right? If you're not a licensed healthcare provider, it's out of your scope to be, obviously diagnosing or telling people what to do anyway, right? So, and even for a physio, if you don't do a formal assessment, I can't tell you, what to do. And so this is really nice language. So you're not telling people, instead you're asking, and that's in line with yoga, this self-inquiry, self-reflection. Well, what helps you? So getting back to that idea, I remember when we were chatting, I wanted you to think about, on your own, what positions were best, what brought you most ease and joy and peace and all of that. And then from there, again, it seems so common sense to me, but from there, those are your go-to, positions or activities. And then within that, you can, pick and choose all kinds of practices or activities, maybe listen to music, or maybe a meditation or a breath practice, or maybe you do some movement in that position. So I don't remember what you had said, but let's say you only could go lie on your side, like that was really the only one, with the pillow a certain way and with your leg a certain way. Well, then do that, and then you can move your pinky finger, or your ankle, and you could you could probably lay there for a half an hour and do a yoga practice on your side, right? Just head to toe, body scan, all these meditative and breathing practices. And like I said, movement practices, your eyes, your face, your neck. There's all sorts of things you can do, around that feel good, that feel easeful and peaceful and joyful. So do those instead of trying just to go straight to fixing.
Yeah, well, it made a huge difference. I feel like it really, and also I have to tell you that it made me remember this when other people tell me about their pain, whether that's physical or emotional. So I think this is something that maybe I didn't learn. Like, I didn't see it modeled or feel it, and when we have injuries or pain in the body, it's one of the best ways that we learn. And so there were lots of people on my healthcare team that said things to me that impacted me in different ways. And I was really taking it in and learning, and we're all unique. But because I know that you know so much about the body as a physio, as a yoga teacher, you know a lot about pain science. You really gave me the feeling of like, I'm empowered to know what serves my body, which is always the way you've talked about the body. You've never let on like, oh, I know better about your body. It was just really fascinating to be the person in that. And also in that conversation, I remember like, I can almost feel it as we start to talk about this, of the thoughts that were going on in my mind. Like, I wasn't able to walk at the time. I had gone to the doctor and I had a diagnosis, and I had a healthcare team around me. And I remember telling you this. Two other things that you said, and maybe I'll just start with one. One that really stuck with me was, okay, you can do whatever you want to do, Shannon, with your, because you were listening to me talk about like I was going to meet with this physio and then maybe this one, and like I wanted to really build that healthcare team. And I remember you saying something along the lines of, your body is going to heal whether you like book 100 appointments with amazing physios, or you let it heal on its own, type of thing. Do you remember saying that to me?
I don't specifically. What I kind of remember, at least, or the theme of what I remember would be, well, actually, let me just reflect on that. Maybe I do a little bit. I think it's just, isn't it funny? It's just the way you framed it. It's like, well, I don't remember saying that exactly, but I do remember the theme of just helping you just trust your body, because I think that's huge. Like, it's so scary. So just specifically talk about your diagnosis. So you have this herniated disc. You have this image of this disc. Who knows what image you had in your mind, but often people you feel like your back is broken, or it's really fragile, and this disc is bulging out or herniated out, and then you had pain, I think, down your leg, and you couldn't even put pressure on it and walk, and like that is so scary, particularly when you have that radicular pain or that referred type pain, or it feels like nervy pain, and I think I just remember the theme of, it's just you're safe, and just calming the whole system down. And it is okay. I mean, we don't want to obviously lie to people, and I don't know that things are going to be okay. But with my profession and my experience, I did know that herniated disc, and you did not have any neurological symptoms, like as far as like bowel bladder. I had asked you that, like bowel bladder loss, or the cauda equina symptoms, where you completely lose your reflex, and some of those red flags, or you have foot drop and that. But what we do know is that herniated discs, I mean, they do heal. And yes, you had an injury, and the body is set up to, it always progresses towards healing. We have to try to do what we can to make sure the environment, within the body around is, nurturing, right? We want to optimize that healing. And sometimes, absolutely, we need guidance from all kinds of different healthcare professionals and a team. So that was the one thing that you had mentioned. I hope I didn't mean to say oh, you don't need any of those people. But I think it was just the idea that just, calm down a little bit, just calm the system. The body will heal, especially in this case, what you had. And because of my experience, I've, for 20 some years, I've worked with hundreds, maybe thousands, I don't know, but hundreds for sure, people that have herniated discs, that have, exact sort of same symptoms. They can't put weight on the leg and can't find a comfortable position. And you do get better. And there is something called regression to the mean, or the natural history of progression of any kind of injury. And so I guess I would say the theme there was I just wanted to, have you feel like, you're going to heal, calm the system down. And that in and of itself is really powerful for healing and for recovery. And then from there, absolutely go to, see your healthcare professionals for guidance on how to, recover movement when you're in pain like that, different exercises and things to do. So yeah, maybe I was sensing that you were really afraid, and that you were maybe hopping around to like a whole bunch of different people. But I don't, it's not like me to tell someone not to do that. I don't think I would say that. But
no, that's not what you did at all. I think you knew in that moment. Well, and what I took away from that was this whole sense of I can do all of these things, and my body knows how to heal itself as well. Putting all of my, not being if I don't, book 20 appointments a week. It's just not there was this real sense of, so much fear and that catastrophization. I might never walk again, or I,
yes.
all of the things that happen when we have an injury and we're placed in this, it's now time to rest, and you can't move. It really shakes your whole world. And in that moment, I think you knew that I needed to hear, I also will heal,
Yes.
And
yeah.
hearing you say that, and knowing that you're a physio who definitely believes in physiotherapy care, made a big impact on me. I still went to see 2 physios.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. I think you got the gist of it though. That was the theme. And here's the thing. Yes. I'll say too, with that idea of, the calming the system, confidence, trusting that you will heal. Again, you need the right, guidance and conditions, but the body is so wise. You're going to, it's going to do what it needs to do. If anything, use all that, from yoga, those awareness skills, those self-compassion skills, and all those practices, patience. And I think, what I wanted to say on that is just even that calming of the system, or that confidence or trust, or whatever words you want to use there, how that shifted. After I told you that, it sounds like you just, it was profound for you. You said you just, and kind of, I'm going to be okay. Okay. What that does, neurobiologically, just throughout your whole system, that's going to then reduce that stress response. And then your whole system will will better heal. I mean, there's all kinds of different processes that go on, right? There's different immune and inflammatory responses. And if the whole system is on this kind of protective, kind of high alert, even subconsciously, just a low level, if you're kind of living day to day with this lack of control, lack of agency, right? That is going to affect the healing process. So that's really profound, just the language and having your whole mental attitude and your state change to one that's like, okay, I am going to be okay, and I can trust. It's going to be hard work and it's going to be bumpy ride, but many, many people, have recovered from this, and I will walk again. And that in and of itself is therapeutic.
The other thing I remember with this that stuck, and thank goodness you said this to me, you were like, that word regression. I don't remember the exact words that you used, but something like, you're going to have good days and it'll get better. And then you will have some days that feel tougher. And I want to just say, like, now we're talking in February and I still have days that are harder on, it feels like my leg, but obviously it's my disc still. I still have days that I'm like, oh gosh, did I push that too far? And it was maybe a day or two after I talked to you where I was like, ooh, look at how I'm healing. Look at the progression I'm making. I was so excited about it. And when I hit that regression, I was like, well, Shelley said this is part of it. Like, if I wouldn't have had that message, it sends you back into this spiral of like, see, I'm not actually healing. I'm not getting better. Does that, what would you add?
I remember that. Oh yeah, that's great. I remember that clearly. And the reason why I remember that clearly is because I will say that's, 20 to 23 years of working with people, and that's what happens. And one thing I think is personally, I think is not helpful is to paint those, rosy rainbow type pictures, because we talk about language and we want to be, what did I just talk about? Positive and language, and you're going to be okay and all that. But then the reality is, no, like there's going to be times, because as you recover, you're pushing your edge, right? You're doing more, you're increasing your activity tolerance. And I mean, it's inevitable that you're going to do a little bit too much too soon. How else are you going to know your edge? How else are you going to know where you are, unless you go over that a little bit. So yeah, it's realistic. So you have to be prepared for that. And then no, you're not, again, you want to calm the system. So you have to know that, that's not, it doesn't mean that you've ruined now all those months of hard work you did, and it's just part of it. Yeah, that's huge. And that is something, like I said, that came from just years and years of working with people, right? That's what you see. And any healthcare rehab professional, will share that with you. So yeah, being realistic, I think, is very, very supportive. I'm glad that's really neat. I didn't know that you had that experience where you had a regression, or whatever word we want to use there, where you had a little blip and you thought, of those words that I told you. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing how, well, when you're left resting and healing, how much, kind of swirls around in the brain, and going from that fight, flight, or freeze, where the nervous system is just like, something's terribly wrong, to also having the awareness as a yoga teacher, like, okay, I know I need to move over into the rest and digest. It's really fascinating. Something else that you encouraged me to do, as you said in the beginning, like, find that position that you can be in, and then what parts of yoga can you bring in? And I remember being on the phone. I propped the phone up in the window. I was on crutches. And you were like, yes, like, you'll need to lie down, but then when you get on your crutches, maybe you can use them. And you were just I know it seems like this is what we do as yoga teachers. We're like, how does it feel to move like this? And, just really inquiry around movement was something that held me in that moment of like, I don't even know if I can put it into words because there was this very fine line of like, I need to rest and heal and just sort of lie here and give it time, and also incorporating movement. I don't know if I'm doing it any justice, Shelley. Do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I'll just start talking. I'll just start talking. We'll see what comes out. Some things that come to mind may not be what you were alluding to, but it's that idea of when you're in this position, like we don't always have to say, oh, is it time to do my rehab exercises? I'm supposed to be resting, or should I move? Shouldn't I? And, trying to find that line. So the first thing, what yoga teaches us, of course, is, just to, as best as you can, have that awareness. And so you can do kosha scans and scan your thoughts, your emotions, your energy, your body, your breath. And, and the more we check in and be aware, then the more insight we have into our needs. So then you do gain that discernment, or you gain that insight into whether you feel like you might need to move a little bit, or whether you feel like you need to rest more. And, but I think getting back to what I was saying, instead of thinking of it as, okay, should I do these rehab exercises, or should I rest? And I think I said this to you, is, just look at your day. I mean, you have to go to the bathroom 6 to 8 times a day. You're probably going to go up and make a cup of tea, or, maybe get something to eat, or so, use those within your day. So if you're, let's say, going to the bathroom and you have to go from sit down on the toilet and then stand up again, that's for your state. If you can't put weight on the one leg, or even just that's going down to sit, or if that's really painful, or you're getting shooting symptoms down the leg. So if you are, doing that sit to stand, and you're going to have to do it anyway, because you have to go to the bathroom. It's not something you can avoid. So, I mean, you can start to kind of use that as exploring and being curious. So how's your breath, your body tension? And just, like I said, be curious about that. So you're standing in front of the toilet, and then as you go to sit, I mean, you have an acute injury, so you don't have to push your edge or anything to force weight on that foot. You can, modify and adapt, but use that as there's movement, and use your breath. And there's your yoga practice, right? You're doing a squat, you're doing, fierce pose. So you come down, you sit, and then as you come up, or if you're going to make your tea, or you have to go walk to the kitchen, just take your time, stand there for a moment in a mountain pose, and maybe shift a little bit as much as you can. Again, breathe. How are the thoughts, emotions, the body tension? And then there you go. You have to now walk over to get your food. And so I don't think that's exactly what you were maybe alluding to, but I guess it's just that idea of incorporating, finding ways in your day to incorporate increasing your activity tolerance, but not, forcing it, or not in a way where you're impatient, right? Well, I only did this, or I did this yesterday, and now today I can't even do that. So there's the yoga again. So just detaching from the outcome, from those expectations, and just go with, the moment and being present. And I'm not sure if that was what you were really talking about, or if that brings up anything else for you.
It does. It really reminds me of, I don't know if I was telling you directly this message of like what kept playing in my mind is like, walking is good for you. Because I remember saying this at different times, and Sean was like, yes, Shannon, walking's good for you, but if you break your foot, you can't be putting weight on it. Like, why are you pushing against this? So I think this whole idea around bed rest, and so then hearing you do it again reminds me, you were like, you are getting up. You're going to use the washroom. Maybe if you feel up to it, then you can walk out to the kitchen. So it's really calling it back that you highlighted the movement that I was able to do or that I had to physically do. And that was so helpful. Another thing that you highlighted, and I just want to share, you know me really well in this, is I was just like, I don't do well at resting. I've got all these projects on the go. Like there's the podcast, and then I had a yoga for pelvic health training coming up. And I was like, what am I going to do? And you said to me, just lying in bed is resting, but also something along the lines of like, thinking about all of these work projects is also using energy. And I hadn't thought of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's huge. That cognitive load.
That's what you called it. Cognitive load. Yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then that changes. So remember, we talk so much about, mind, body, spirit, and just remember, we can't separate, those things. We can't separate mind and body. So when you're thinking of these things and worrying about them, that's manifesting in the body, the system. So again, getting back to the nervous systems, or everything that's happening, all the different physiological processes that are happening in the body to help you heal. When you're thinking of work and you're thinking of all this stuff, that's load, and that's part of the body. Like I said, you can't separate. So, on another note too, like it's also fascinating. It's individual. And this is, again, what yoga tells us. It's that self-inquiry, self-guided, self-reflection. You explore, you be curious. So you and I are, this is your experience, and you know what you needed to, reflect. And maybe you were someone who maybe had a lot of expectations, or maybe you just thought, I don't want to say expectations. You just thought, like you said, the walking is supposed to be good, and I need to keep moving, and I need to keep doing this work or that work, and someone else, might be different. And so we have to look at each individual too, so someone else may have different thoughts about this process. And I think what it comes down to is just asking people to self-reflect and to really look at, well, what do you think? I think that's the biggest thing, is that we're always looking outside for answers, of course. And again, we all need that for guidance, and that's so helpful. But we forget a lot about going within and just checking in and saying, well, what do I think, or what do I need? So this idea of, okay, so walking. So you knew, or you were told, like, walking is good. And that's true. Especially when we're looking at herniated discs, like some of the best kind of exercises, or the best activity one can do is like walk. And you'll hear that from all the professionals, like, just walking is just good, But then you have to take that, and you have to look at, well, the time and the place and when and how much. And so it doesn't mean that you just every day, at this time, or every day I have to get my half hour in. And you have to look at the context of the situation, and each day is going to be a little different. And someday you may need to do a different position and lie down more. And so it's contextual, I guess.
So true.
Is the
You said it
that.
nicely. I would say, like, I'm pretty type A, and I don't rest well. That yoga has served me to, like, find that rest, and I don't know that it would exist outside of that.
Yeah. Well, and we can look at how, if we are that type A, and I am too, and if we are looking at, well, we need to, okay, let's say this in a little more compassionate, self-compassionate language. So we're type A. I mean, well, how about, we just really, really want to do our best. Like we just really, really want to, heal and recover, and we want to do the right things, right? We're
Right.
looking for help because we want to do what we're told, because we want to do our best. It's not because we're hard-headed or perfectionism. And I mean, sure, there's some of that, but how about we bring in a kinder, self-compassionate tone? And it's like, hey, we're just really trying, to do our best. We don't want to mess up this recovery healing process. So, if we look at that, say, okay, well, the rest part, so that's when you have to take an honest look at yourself and what you're doing, and say, oh, maybe, so I was really sore today, or my leg was really, really acted up today. And you can kind of look at maybe some of the things you did, that day, or maybe the days leading up to, and well, I did kind of push, and I did host that Facebook Live or that podcast. And then I did try to walk, but I thought I did that because I'm trying to help myself, right? I'm trying to walk because that's what you're supposed to do. And then you have the self-compassion. You say, okay, maybe that was too much. So today's going to be more of a, the rest, or whatever word you want to use, and more like restorative types of things. And again, I go back to not even saying like, okay, now you have to rest, but like, well, what do you need today or in this moment? What is, and that's part of the self-compassion, the self-kindness piece. So, okay, well, what serves you right now? Oh, well, just this position in bed where I put my leg like this and I have that pillow, and well, guess what? Awesome. Then like you're being productive, for us type A people, there you go. This is the most productive thing that you can do for yourself right now, is this restorative type, rest position. Look what it's doing. Look how it's increasing that parasympathetic nervous system, which helps to increase tissue repair, and level out those, our neuroendocrine system and neuroimmune system. And so, look, if you want that, if you want to stay with that mentality, then stay with it. That's you. That's how we're wired. So then use that and say, okay, so now I'm going to, have this hot bath, or now I'm going to do this. And so that's just another way to look at it. Instead of saying that, you're going to go away from your nature, right? You're going to leave that because that's not serving you, and you're going to try to be someone you're not. No. Embrace your nature, embrace who you are, and
It's so good. It
and
was
use
so
that.
helpful. And I feel like I owe you a lot of gratitude for giving me a call. I don't remember how that happened. I don't remember if I reached out to you in a panic or if you saw me post it somewhere. I can't even remember. Things are foggy from that time, but the impact of your words has definitely resonated. And I said to you maybe a month or two later, we need to do a podcast on this, but I need to heal a little bit more and I want to do it down the road. And I just, I'm so appreciative that you are doing this work, both
Yay.
with pain care and the compassion, compassion for self, compassion for others. It really had such an impact on my healing journey. And then I think it's just this ripple thing that can go out into the world. So I'm excited that this is what you're doing. You're teaching other yoga teachers. How can our yoga teachers who want to study more with you and support the people who might be dealing with acute or persistent pain, or maybe they're dealing with it themselves, how can they connect further with you?
Yeah. So, well, first, I just want to say thank you for this podcast, and thank you for sharing your story, and, for getting vulnerable. You have to share with everybody your personal story and what you've gone through. So thank you for that. And I'm really, really glad that you remembered those few points, and, that that really stuck out for you. And so just thank you. And I hope it helps some of the listeners in some way. So how yoga teachers, I am currently involved in, and will continue to be moving forward in, a really, really cool project. And it's for yoga teachers and fitness professionals as well. And it's through Pain Care U, and it's called Pain Care Aware. And so what we're trying to do is exactly what you say. We're trying to help yoga teachers be more, and here's a term, pain literate. So help yoga teachers understand more about pain, about teaching yoga to people in pain. And now we're not turning you into yoga therapists. We're not having you treat pain or diagnoses or anything like that, but we're helping yoga teachers learn more about pain and understand pain so that you can more safely, more effectively teach yoga classes that are pain informed, just like, we do trauma informed type classes. Because you're going to have people in your class that have pain. Pain is a normal human condition. I'm, dedicated with Neil Pearson and Lisa Pearson. I'm one of the lead trainers in helping yoga teachers learn. It's a whole program. So it's the first part's 30 hours. It's all online, self-paced, pre-recorded, self-learning, some really cool, videos and different content. And then the remaining 20 hours is live online. And that's what I'll be teaching. Go to my website, physioyoga.ca. Take a few moments to browse. I got a lot of free webinar presentations on this topic of pain and compassion and the work I do with self-compassion that you can integrate into your yoga classes. So we'll just start there. And then the other website is the paincareaware.com. And then you can start to see, what that program is all about, and that training to get certified as a Pain Care Aware yoga teacher.
This is amazing. I think it is such an important offering. Like you said, at some point, we're going to be working with people in pain. And a lot of the time, it's often people are feeling some kind of discomfort in their body. And that's why they're coming to yoga, even if they don't tell us.
Yeah. And one thing, and I know we have to wrap it up here, but I think we have to say this before leaving, and that my experience with a lot of my wonderful yoga friends, my yoga teacher friends, one thing I keep hearing over and over is, well, how to keep your students safe. Just if something hurts, just don't do it. That's kind of the common what's out there, or better to be safe than sorry, or, we'll just say this, just in case, if it hurts, just don't do it. But what we show in the program, what we talk about, and maybe you'll be able to have Neil on here sometime and he can talk further. And I'd be happy to do another one, but there are problems, with stopping just because it hurts. There's a whole host of different issues with that. And we believe, and the science is showing us this too, that can actually do more harm, right? By giving these external cues versus having the person go within and increase their own awareness and discernment. And that can be more safe and effective. So I think we'll stop there because we're getting really into another whole podcast. But does that make sense? Does that make sense, Shannon?
It does. And I'm so excited. I was like frantically making a little note here because I reached out to Neil and asked him to come on the podcast. And I was like, what do you think the topic is that we should cover? And I feel like you've just done the homework for me, Shelley, in thinking we can chat about that. That's fascinating to me because so often we say, don't do anything that hurts in yoga. If it hurts, that's bad, or so much.
Yeah. And there's misconceptions, because there's this idea too with the science around pain. More as we start to learn more and more about it, sometimes people think it means to ignore the pain. Sometimes people think it means mind over matter. Sometimes people, think it means things that it doesn't. So there's just, it's important if we want as yoga teachers to make our classes inclusive and accessible to people who have persistent pain. Because remember, people who have chronic or persistent pain, they're in your classes. These aren't people that are medically unstable or who are not allowed to do movement, right? They're there because, well, for all kinds of reasons, they want to be there. And also their doctors, healthcare practitioners are telling them, go to a, community yoga class. And there's lots that we can do as yoga teachers without being yoga therapists. And believe me, it makes what we have, I believe, it makes it easier. Because right now, I think it's hard for yoga teachers, right? You've got all these messages out there, and you need to do this alignment, or you need to do this, or don't do this, or then you hear the opposite, and you think, oh, well, so it is okay to do that now, and so this way, this kind of process in pain care aware is a lot about language and like I said, understanding pain and the concepts. So then it helps you teach your classes in a way that it's just more safe. And I want to say the word fair. I don't know why that word comes to mind, but just, and it helps people be, more fair, because you're not excluding people in pain. Like, oh, that hurts, so don't do that. And there's another way, and you're limiting people's potential for recovering their movement, and you're limiting their potential for resiliency. But then the question is, how do you do that in a safe way? And that's our work. We've dedicated, our almost a lot of years, right, to this work. So
That's amazing. I love the word fair. I actually didn't know until you started saying these different people. Oh, I love that you shared this. And also, you have a book as well that we'll link to in the show notes. And definitely go to Shelley's website and check it out. There's just a ton of information that you share about so many aspects of pain, pelvic health, and compassion. Thank you so much, Shelley. From the bottom of my heart, thank you personally for guiding me. And then thank you as well for being up for sharing this with our yoga teachers so that they can get a glimpse into, here are some things that can really help someone who's dealing with pain.
Mm-hmm. Within our scope as a yoga teacher.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for having me back and listening to me babble again. And just you're welcome. And thank you. And I love you very much, Shannon.
I love you too. Thank you so much, Shelley. Goodness. Thank you so much again, Shelley. Thank you also, Connected Yoga Teachers, for having a listen to this conversation. It's really interesting reflecting back almost a full year later now, today, as I'm recording this for you. So Shelley and I recorded this a while back, but it's almost been a year since I had my herniated disc. And today I was noticing, my low back feels a little bit tender. It's talking to me. And I understand the pain message of that a little bit more. And you'll even hear more on this next week as we talk with Neil Pearson. So I made a list, and I'll make sure to include it in the show notes for you, of just helpful things that I picked up from Shelley. I wanted to make this into a nice list so that you could just have it in front of you to remember, okay, these are the things that really helped one person who was dealing with pain. So number one, what positions or movements bring you ease, peace, or joy? Number two, the body is set up to progress towards healing. Number three, regression is a normal thing in recovery and healing. 4, be curious as you move. Increase your movements without forcing. 5, detach from your expectations as much as possible. 6, can you reduce your cognitive load as you heal? 7, we are all so unique. Make sure to ask individuals, what do you think? 8, speak with compassion to self. 9, pain is a normal human condition. 10, pain is not necessarily bad, especially when we're moving in something like doing a yoga class. And so that we are going to cover next week with Neil Pearson. As I said, I was so glad to get this recommendation from Shelley. It just tied in really nicely. So also, as promised, there's a coupon code for 15% off for that course that Shelley and Neil's wife Lisa all led together. I'll make sure to put the link to it in our show notes and the coupon code. So the coupon code is ConnectedPCA15, and I'll make sure that the link to the course is in the show notes. Thank you so much to everyone here on the team for making today's episode possible, and also to you, dear listener, for tuning in all the way to the end, really digging into this conversation around pain and how we can serve our yoga students. If you have any questions at all about today's episode, don't hesitate to reach out in the show notes or send us a voice message. The show notes page is at theconnectedyogateacher.com/226, and our voicemail button is right on our homepage. I also just want to put a little note here for our fellow Canadian yoga teachers, and really our yoga teachers around the globe who maybe know someone from Canada, or also are becoming mindful of how we can care for the Indigenous people of different nations. As this episode is going to go out, we are coming up to what we generally call Canada Day. July the 1st is Canada Day, and Canada has also had some really hard news this year around our residential school systems and how the Indigenous people, the first people here in Canada, were treated by the settlers. And so I wanted to pose a really special question here of how can we stay connected to this news, and how can we learn a little bit more about the history of maybe our country and the Indigenous population there and the Indigenous community there, and how we can show up and help and serve and stay connected to the actual information of how things were formed and how things went. And in that, also, I found it really helpful to be very connected with my yoga practice. So that's an inquiry that I'm putting out there for you, connected yoga teachers, and ultimately so that we can all share the yoga that lights us up.